Welcome to Suddenly Different, where we explore stories and strategies for life when it doesn't go to plan. I'm Leigh-Anne Charland, inviting you to join me on this journey. What do you do when life reveals truths that rewrite the story you thought you were living? For my guest today, Mitchell Parkins, it began with two shocks that landed almost back to back. Discovering a family secret that reshaped his identity and being made redundant from his corporate role. The family secret carried both surprise and weight. An unexpected Aboriginal ancestry that reframed how he saw himself, his lineage, and his place in the world. And just as he was navigating that upheaval, the safety of a steady paycheck disappeared. But in the dismantling came something else, an opening. For Mitch, fatherhood, a trip around Australia, and stepping away from safe choices sparked a deeper agency, an intentional life designed around purpose, not pressure. A life where he now helps others step beyond the should-dos and into their own truth. Today, we'll explore how these moments broke him open, shaped his family relationships and parenting, and ultimately led him to a life of deeper knowing and deliberate impact. Welcome, Mitch. It is wonderful to see you.
Hello, Leigh-Anne. How are you, legend?
I am great. This has been years in the making, this conversation. And I just
We're a long way from the cafe in the rocks, aren't we? The last time we caught up in person.
Oh, I know. And look, it was always wonderful to catch up. So let's jump into this family secret, because I'm sure that it was probably stopped you in your tracks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So take us back to the moment where you first learned about your Aboriginal ancestry, or even before that, what was leading up to it, and how did it play out in how you felt?
Yeah. So even before that, even before the lead up, which I'll get into, and it was very weird, to set some context. I'm a kid from the Shire, or I was. I grew up in a place called Caringbah, which is just up the road from Cronulla, which is basically the next suburb. I can look directly as the crow flies to where Captain Cook landed on the shores of Kamay or Botany Bay. And for those who don't know this area, it's like very Anglo, very bubble-like, you can't say quintessentially Australian, but it's got this kind of very Aussie, in inverted commas, flavour to this place. And I think most people who aren't from Cronulla or the Shire probably look at it as this weird bubble that's almost, I don't know, a time in Australia that's kind of been locked in a time capsule. So I went through my life under that kind of lens, of this very, I don't know, small one-dimensional view of Australia. I went to a school called Endeavour, which was named after Captain Cook's ship. The Shire that I live in, the emblem is James Cook's head. Most of the kind of landmarks around here have some kind of connection to the founding or birthplace of modern Australia. And that was like the prism through which I wouldn't say defined my identity, shaped my view of Australia in a lot of kind of, I don't know, very weird, bubbly kind of ways. And it was at around the age of maybe around 30 that just some rumblings in my family started going on. And they lasted for quite a while before it was no longer rumblings. And I distinctly remember pushing for clarity on what it was that we were supposed to know, or what it was that we were that we thought we weren't. And that was kind of the undercurrent. It was just weird because my family started acting in a way that was foreign to me. There was, the only word I can really use was this undercurrent of maybe shame and mystery and kind of confusion and just surprise. I was like, that's really weird. Obviously, I'm 30. I've got a million things going on in my life. I'm busy. I'm working my guts out, and like it was an undercurrent, but it was a weird undercurrent, and I didn't really like it. And I was curious to get a sense of, what are you talking about? So eventually I think it's all a bit weird, Leigh-Anne, and it is hard to kind of piece together and pull apart, but I am doing my best. I kind of just got to a point where I was like, what is going on? Like, what do you guys know that we don't? And can someone fill us in? Because I wasn't ashamed. I wasn't concerned about the truth. I was kind of like, what is it? Like, the truth can set you free. So what the hell is this weird bubble that we're kind of in? And oh man, the moment of discovery was so weird. And I actually looked at this very thick folder that I was given just a couple of months ago. And it was kind of just plonked in my lap. And I was like, I'm pretty sure my nan was like, it was my nan. She's like, there's everything you need to know about who you are. And I was like, what the hell is that? And there wasn't much more context than that. And I was just like, this is just so weird. So weird. And a couple of months ago when I was looking at it, really interestingly, it had a message and it was like, "Dear Elizabeth, happy 40th birthday." That was from a lady who I've since met and spoken to, wrote that message to my nan for her 40th birthday. I got given that folder when my nan was about 80. So that folder and kind of knowledge and understanding had sat in a folder for 40 years. And it wasn't a mystery to my nan. Like, my nan went to Bawana as a child. My nan had actual memories of it. My nan also, at this time, started to really deteriorate mentally. She's got Lewy body dementia, and it felt like a bit of a race, because I'm uber curious, and I feel really connected to this part of myself. So I wanted to learn and understand, and it did feel like a bit of a race against time between Nan's mental faculties, Nan unpacking whatever it was that she was carrying in and around this, to try and get a sense of what's everything that we should know that we don't. And I don't, to be honest, I stand here before you not really feeling like I got all the answers that I would have liked, or the context or the connections, or I guess a pathway to connect with that side of my family in a way that I would like, but I've certainly tried and we'll keep trying. And that's the discovery. It was very, very weird, very weird. And it was really wrapped in shame. And that's kind of the only way I can explain it. Not nice.
Yes, because back when your nan was a child and a young woman, there were so many things going on in Australia when it came to mixed relationships between Indigenous and European. Then you've got the stolen generation. So there's so many different elements in there where there's constantly people discovering that life isn't what it was, and it was wrapped in shame. There was definitely a caste system, as far as, especially, well, I know I came from Queensland, Brisbane, and I remember they were extremely prejudiced when I was growing up,
Big time.
sort of 55 years ago. So with your nan, she's still with us, but she's got Lewy body dementia. Do anyone else in your family have more knowledge, or have they developed connections with this other sort of whole family tree?
Yeah, it's this is probably something that, obviously, I'm in the minority in terms of this story and this experience, but the people that I'm kind of speaking to that are in a similar situation face this level of what I would call kind of resistance that I have. I have members of the family that have been really supportive and given me a lot of information and tried to help me understand more about this part of our family history. I've also at the same time met, just, I can't really use a better word than resistance, and I understand why it's there, from the other side, who are the connection to the source, who are a bit sick and tired of people like me kind of knocking on the door wanting to understand. And it's a heavy weight to carry. And they don't, for all intents and purposes, they don't know why I'm knocking. They might think I want something, and really all I want is actually a connection to who I am. And that can be really hard because you're kind of like, oh, geez, I'm kind of in between a bit of a rock and a hard place. But I've had heaps of support, and I have met some incredible people. And the first time I went back to Brewarrina, so for context, my great nan, who I remember, Nan's mum, she was raised by nuns, and as the writing goes, her mother died giving birth to one of her siblings, and that may or may not be true, and she was raised by nuns, and that was kind of the cult or the connection to what was effectively a very different existence and a life in Brewarrina that was kind of not like most other people's lives. And going back there, I connected with some incredible people that, could feel like, and said it to me, like, we feel it. And I was like, well, that's, standing on the banks and just letting time, like there is no time. And, those moments are incredible, but they're also, you've got to work to actually connect and understand them. And it's something that I'm just continuing to understand more about.
Think it like it's a glorious thing. The thing that popped in my mind was the joy that you will have and the confusion, but the joy when you're doing the family tree project, the first family tree project you do from school will be really interesting as you explore even more.
Yeah.
And I do understand the resistance there'll be because there are a lot of people who are not truly related by blood who claim,
Of course. Yeah.
and which is such a shame. Yeah. So how did you find as the secret became exposed, I suppose,
Yeah.
how did your close family respond to that? Were there any interesting conversations about like sharing it with others as far as the story goes? Because family's family. They
Yeah.
sometimes like their secrets.
Yeah. It was a bit of a mix. I guess I'm a bit of an outlier and was kind of just true to like what it was. I didn't really want to entertain anything other than prize. This is what it is. There's probably elements of the family that like that six to go play on. Like it's it hasn't really had an impact or changed how they think about the world or changed them, but there are family members that are really interested and feel really connected and go back out there, and but it's like it's a generational break. Like it's not like like I'm certainly trying to pick up pieces of that origin story and understand more about it. Yeah, I think there's varying degrees of care factor and interest, really, and that's just understandable. I don't think that's everyone's got their own lives and their own understanding, and to be completely honest, like I do think there are varying degrees of you kind of feel it within you or you don't, and I respect that as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I can imagine the opportunity to learn another way of thinking. I think I spoke to you last time we spoke about the TEDx event I went to, and
yeah,
there was this amazing woman who's studying space.
mm,
And she was putting into context our responsibility on space travel and what we were doing on the moon and what we plan to do on Mars. And with the indigenous view on first taking responsibility for the land and really planning on how it was going to be used, which is so different to the consumerism, money orientated version of what can we get. It was really a much of how can we protect, how can we make this last for millions of years, not for moments,
yeah, yeah.
which,
It's a beautiful culture,
yes.
and I think for me it was really interesting in that moment. The shame that was felt or projected kind of swallowed as, well, I don't really understand what it is to be Aboriginal. proclaimed to love this country and really understand it. And here I am, 30 years old. I have no context to what it is to be Aboriginal, what the culture means. And from that moment on, I was like, well, I'm going to learn and I'm going to understand. And that kind of conscious, deliberate leaning into that curiosity has really changed my life and just changed a lot of my perspective on connection more than anything. And I think, if we were to label like what causes so much of the ails of the modern world, it's disconnection. And to me, the kind of central theme of Aboriginal culture is connection. When you practice it, it's beautiful. It changes your life and it changes how you see things. It changes how you relate to yourself, to others, to the world around you, the works. So it's not to suggest that, capitalism's bad or the ancient, most beautiful culture is somehow better, or I just think there's an opportunity for us all to learn and respect and understand, because it's pretty clear that there is so much we can learn from the ancient wisdom that would serve us so much better today. But we just have to be prepared to lean in and respect different voices and work as a collective unit, not trying to domineer or one's better than the other. I think that's the opportunity.
Yes, respect. It's equal respect. It is not better than or less than. It is we're equal. And we all bring to the table, when you look at the bushfires and how there's the different management of the land to avoid catastrophes. And I think that, in those ways, people are starting to listen. And let us hope that our curiosity and our respect increases and doesn't diminish.
There's so much for us to gain by having that respect and mutual dialogue and just pulling on that ancient wisdom. I went and volunteered at Bruce Pascoe's farm, for lack of better verbiage, down in Malakuta, where the fires absolutely eviscerated that region. And he's farming native grasses down there to make the most beautiful breads and flours that I've ever tasted in my life. And to see how they are not just kind of reducing the fire risk, but innovating like the most ancient practices that I'm aware of in terms of food production is fascinating. Like it's so cool and it's super healthy, so much better for the land, so uniquely Australian. These grasses taste beautiful. And as a health nut, they're high in protein. So they're the best type of flowers that we should possibly be eating. So yeah, there's just, it's endless. Once you start, the journey of discovery is wild, because I'm a foodie. I love it. I realized through my process of trying to understand, I was like, okay, how do I learn? How have I learned about other cultures? Well, when I went to Germany, I ate all the food and just started going through all these places in the world and how food was this pathway to understanding cultural norms, practices, rituals, how people connect. And I was like, where the hell do I go and get some Aboriginal food in Australia?
I don't know.
Yeah. And
Yes.
I was like, oh my, this is batshit crazy. How is this not something that we celebrate, something that we're able to lean into, something that we use to bring the community together? And that was the real start of, I want to do something about this. And I really did think that I was going to do something in this space, because my curiosity in this space is pretty wild. But I did have to get to a point where I was like, I picked up Bruce's kind of inspiration, and I'm not Bruce, like I'm Mitch, and am I the right messenger for this? And I had to kind of really reconcile with that. And that was hard, but it was a good process to actually get to the point where I could look myself in the eye, sit myself down and say, like, you're not prepared to give your entire life to make this cultural phenomenon, but you can do whatever you can. And it may well be that it comes about in a different forum or a different way in the future. But it wasn't going to be, franchising Aboriginal McDonald's or some, I had lots of visions and was working pretty hard at some really cool things to tell the story and actually connect the community through food, because Indigenous food is delicious. We have no idea, generally speaking, what it is. And once you start, you're blown away. because the strength of the flavors, the quality of the produce, not so much the domestic availability, but that's changing too rapidly. It's beautiful. And it's mad because you instantly get this connection to, oh, okay. So, you know, food is this giver of life, and suddenly you're more connected to country and where it comes from. And, you know, the same way in modern life, we're kind of disconnected from the food chain. To go and rewind that to ancient food chains is like just mad. I love it. So
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
Sounds so amazing, because it does seem to me, for the first time I've ever thought this, it is ridiculous. We
Wild.
don't have a restaurant to go to have our native Australian food.
This stuff's confronting. There's a reason for it.
We don't. Yeah, that is bizarre. And I remember having coffee with you and talking about as you were discovering the food, and you're always enthusiastic about everything. So you throw your whole being into everything that you do. And it is that childlike enthusiasm, that seeking to learn, that will benefit your children and their children, because they will have that curiosity about who they are. So let's move on to the redundancy part.
Yeah.
So,
and
I was with you through this.
You were.
So you were very quietly processing this family revelation.
Yeah.
When
I actually shared it with the whole of the marketing department, just like right before it happened.
Wow.
Which was wild in and of itself. I don't for a second think they were all related, but it was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, well, I mean, I know the process of the corporate world, and I know that we are not seen as individuals when they are doing restructures. We are positions and roles and tasks, and they decide how much money they're going to invest in them. I had to go through this when my son at the same time was made redundant as you. And I had to move from it being the personal occurrence to the logistical change. But there's it's a long bow to go from the emotional feeling of being told that you're being made redundant, and then unpacking what that means for you. So you just told the marketing department your story.
Yeah.
They were gobsmacked, I'm sure, just as you were. And then the restructure happens. So how did you feel? What did you think?
I think in hindsight, I actually got very lucky. I don't mean with the redundancy. I mean with what was happening in my life. So my wife was pregnant, like 2 or 3 months in, if my memory serves me correct, because it's all a blur. We'd lost a few before even the first one, and we'd lost a few trying for the second. And I had this newfound role in my life, which for a lot of men is like, father, make the money, provide. And in that moment, I had, father, make the money, you're not providing.
Yes.
That was really good for me, because I think without that happening to me at that time, I could have really easily just seen my entire identity as the provider, the very traditional, I'll use the words disconnected dad that really has a one-dimensional view of their role within the family and pursued that to the nth degree. And I wouldn't say that I had to learn that lesson more than once, but learning what it was to be a dad whilst also discovering what it was to be Aboriginal in those all at the same time gave me this real sense of, okay, your identity has been completely consumed by your professional success to this point, and maybe that wasn't great. Maybe there's a bit more to life, and maybe this is an opportunity for you to color in your tapestry a bit more and grow as a person. So it's like it kicked me in the guts, but there was a couple of confounding factors. It had happened to me before. So when I was about 25 or 26 or something, the first serious job I'd had, there was a takeover and I'd smashed it in that role. Like, couldn't have done any better. And I mean the role prior to Sportsbet. And I didn't throw my toys out of the pram, but I kind of kicked up a stink at the takeover, shared all the things that I thought were incredibly stupid about the strategy that they were proposing. And they didn't like that. And fair enough. Like, I wouldn't like that either if I was a 45-year-old seasoned marketer with some 25-year-old kid telling you that your strategy sucked and you were making a bunch of massive mistakes. As it turned out, I was completely right and they ruined that company. And I ended up with a much better role at Sportsbet in a much better business, and was a part of bringing them undone. And they'd tried to hire me back, 2 years after they let me go because they realized, I think we maybe got that one a bit wrong, and he was actually right because they sacked all the people that I was pushing back against. Having that experience so young actually made me realize that just because you're kind of the wrong person in the wrong moment at the wrong time doesn't mean that you're not valuable, doesn't mean that you're not going to find something better, doesn't mean that you haven't done an amazing job. It may simply mean that you and one other person are not gelling for whatever reason. And we just lost Luke. I don't know if you remember at that time, but he was such a profound leader for me. He taught me so much about what it was to be a phenomenal leader. And that changed my relationship to the company in and of itself. So much so that, my vision board at the time, which was saved on my freaking desktop at work. Like, I've never shared this out loud, but it's just bizarre. One of the pictures was job search on my vision board. So, like, if you're coming into a business, if you're like needing to make changes and you have to have headcount and you've got a sign on someone's desk that says job search and you have to cut costs, like, who are you choosing? And I'm not suggesting that that was a thing, but we have to be so careful with what we think, feel, do subconsciously, because like it sends a message. I knew I'd done a great job. So it was kind of like, yeah, maybe my performance has slipped and maybe it's not as good as it was, but I'll be all right. It was very different to when it happened at 25, full of hubris and arrogance and a lack of self-awareness, to happen at 32 with a child on the way, having worked my absolute guts out for 7 years to get to a point where I thought I was ready for the next role, wasn't even asked. And it was kind of like, okay, fine. It is what it is. It hit hard. But like I said, I think I was saved by these other ingredients coming into my life, which were go and discover more about the world. Like, you wanted your bubble broken, it's popped, man. Go and explore, go and learn, go and understand yourself a bit better. So that's what I did.
Wow. And so in that sounds so empowering and so interesting for the listeners to be able to see a different perspective on that shake-up of reality. You're not, it wasn't a blame statement. It was I'm part of this change I'm part of, and it is up to me to make the most out of it and learn. So with your looking at the finances, right? So your confidence was good.
Yeah.
But you now had the bit of uncertainty with the finances. Had you done anything beforehand to sort of prepare for that? Because that is something I think that in Australia, I don't know that we do terribly well.
No,
is prepare for life's ups and downs.
Yeah.
So did you have a view, like an idea in your head?
Did I have an idea? It went through this period of I've got to work out what's next. Obviously, when you get a redundancy, one of the best and worst things that happens generally for most people, especially if you've been there a while, is you're paid out. You're given an amount of money. I say best and worst because the worst parts about that are at no point in your life had anyone ever just handed you a significant amount of money. If you don't have good financial literacy skills, that's like the worst thing that can ever happen to you, because it changes how you see money. It changes your relationship to it. the way you handle that money may well be completely different to the way you handled money that you'd earned through blood, sweat, and guts. I was lucky I had a kid, but I still use that money in ways that, in hindsight, weren't necessarily the best use. But up until that point, I'd worked hard to get to a point where money was helping me live a better life, not just surviving, but really, I wasn't just working my guts out to work my guts out. I really believed that at some point gears would shift and I would get to a place where I was doing what I was meant to be doing with my life. And I'm not suggesting that what I was doing in the past wasn't what I was meant to be doing, because I actually think I was born to do that role at that time. But you change and you grow and your perception of the world changes.
And has it changed your view on financial security and employment focus?
Massively. Has it changed my view? So since then, I kind of went into hyperdrive of I need to understand this money thing a whole lot better. And I realized, I'd done a good job getting us into a position where we were in pretty good financial shape relative to our age and all the rest of it. But I'd worked my ass off. Like the hours, the extent of the travel, the absence from life was significant. And I'd really gotten to a point where I was very conscious that a job isn't secure. That's not security. And I had to do an awful lot of reprogramming and an awful lot of work to realize that the status that I'd seeked from positions, titles, the things I was able to buy and project to say I was enough was all bullshit. And I really had to get to a point where I got clear on like what I wanted, who I wanted to be, and how I wanted to ultimately be remembered, but use my time, not just get more things. And that's like, I'm still doing that work. That's hard because
Life work. It's
it's life work.
Mitch.
It is. But the inability to face that work, because I've coached people to do this work, keeps people stuck in golden handcuffs that they hate, because they can't conceptualize the fact that they may be on a really good salary today, and if they go and pursue their dreams tomorrow, they're not, and that they can't bridge the place of current massive salary to not massive salary to way bigger salary in the future, because I'm actually doing something that I love with impact purpose that's aligned to who I actually want to be. They can't bridge that. And the reason they can't bridge that is twofold. One, the projection of kind of what you're making in your last pay packet is your self-worth. And two, this kind of refusal to just be a learner and just be at zero each day and realize that, okay, today's another day to get back. Like, I'm teaching my son how to ride a bike now, and I'm literally just like, this is it. This is life. Every single day, you can't cry when you fall. Like, you can cry, of course, if it hurts, cry, but I said to Coop the other day, I said, mate, because I took one of his training wheels off, and he's like, Dad, I really want the other training wheel. And he kept kind of, he'd balance, and he'd fall. And I say, mate, the minute you are not feeling like this in your life, you're not trying hard enough. Like, I want you to love this feeling. I wasn't as prescriptive, but I was really trying to send him that message of, this is success, because this is the path to actually win. Like, all of the great winners do a phenomenal amount of losing before they get there. And we only kind of glamorize or shine a spotlight on the winning. But, all the great tennis players, look at their careers. They lost an incredible amount before they started winning. And that's just the path to victory, ultimately.
And it's that 10,000 hours or, whatever the thing is, the playing playing guitar for multiple hours a day, even though you've been playing it for 60 years, you still do that because you have to have that automatic, this is the feeling I have when I am doing excellence. And that feeling isn't like being a sloth on a couch.
No.
Right?
Growth is uncomfortable.
It is. And so is change.
Yeah.
Right? And so the more that we can look at that change, like for me, being suddenly different, for you being suddenly different, the gifts in those changes are huge.
Yeah.
And if you can't compare yourself to the old person that you were, well, you wouldn't want to. It is, I did this, I use that learning here, I live, love, and excel at my life.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So looking at, like, you're talking about your coaching and everything, you describe the chapter you're in at the moment is finding agency as your favorite time. Fatherhood, traveling around Australia, stepping away from safe. What has unlocked in you during this time, this season, or is still unlocking in you?
It's a bit of both. It's life's work. So that process of trying to use money as a tool to better live my life helped me realize that I was actually becoming my dad. And I love him dearly. He's a beautiful human being, but there's lots of aspects about dad that I don't want for myself or my sons. And I realized that money was controlling me. I wasn't controlling the money. And that really kind of rattled me and just helped me get a sense of the work that I needed to do. And it was ultimately agency. It was the belief that I could shape the life that I wanted. I didn't have to be a corporate slave. I could be a present father. I could ultimately travel around Australia and pursue a dream and live life like alive, connected to who I actually wanted to become. And yeah, the process of becoming a dad, no one at all prepares you for the process of becoming a father, especially to boys as a man. And I think it's probably the inverse is probably true. I guess there's this level of like your childhood is transmuted through you is kind of the simplest way I can explain it. And you actually have to start doing the work that kind of your parents maybe didn't as a child for you and then for your kids. And that is profound experience that, mate, I had a million conversations about becoming a dad. No one told me that was going to happen. No one told me you'd go through this process of realizing how much of you was your dad and how much of like his stuff was now your stuff and the process of having to work all that out. And I snapped a picture. We were on family holidays down at the beach and I've always been, reasonably health conscious and did heaps of sport at school and as a kid and had pretty good training habits all throughout my adult life. But I had this picture snapped on school holidays. Cooper was maybe just before Cody was born and Cody's 2. And I was enormous, like the size of a house. And it was really confronting. And at the same kind of time, a mate had really squared me up and just said, mate, you are a borderline fat this. And I was like, he's right. He's right. And I realized that like I was sleepwalking. And I think a lot of people do it. There was a lot of markers that said I was successful. There was heaps. But internally I was nowhere. There was this real sense of, well, been made redundant. I'm still trying to work out what I actually want to do with my life. And that was confronting because I tried, I spent a long time actually trying to work that out. It's phenomenal once you actually do. I tell you what, it's a nice feeling. But it was about how do I like build this life that I want, not keep putting my faith in everyone else or other institutions or friendships or relationships. It's like it's on you.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're not interconnected. It doesn't mean that relationships aren't the thing, but your relationship to yourself is what really matters. And you need to learn how to start keeping promises to yourself. So that photo, that realization, that process financially and health-wise rocked me to my core. And I basically just drew a line in the sand and went, righto, no more, enough, done. Athlete for life, go and get healthy. You know what to do. You're not doing it. Why don't you see what happens if you actually do it? So that's what I've been doing ever since.
And when you're living presently, right? So to me, that is living presently for yourself. It is giving yourself self-care. It is educating your children, because this is how they become men, through you, not through the dad bod you,
No.
through you, who you are when you're present. And it's about looking at the data, right? You and I are deeply connected through data, but it is looking at your personal data. What is happening? What clothing size are you wearing? How many photos do you let yourself get in before you become the permanent photographer? And what is it? How many times do you avoid being home? How many times do it's looking at all of those statistics that we don't pay attention to. And when did we last think? Stop. When did we last think? I can't remember thinking. I can remember autopilot,
I'm getting
and
really good at that.
especially if you're working with people to help them find their purpose. I find that part of working with people, and I used to do it secretly in my corporate job.
Yeah.
But it is finding, how can I elevate the energy of these people I'm with so that they can find themselves, and then they can choose. Because until they're awake, they can't choose. There is no choice.
Sleepwalking is not a nice. It's not a nice
No.
existence.
It's not.
But you don't realize you're doing it.
And if it turns out that in marriage your relationship is in sleep autopilot mode, well, you've soon learned that you have nothing in common. So it's so important, and that's where, like, even with careers, supporting each other, enabling both of you to have your dreams, teaching your children how to have their dreams. It's wonderful. So as you are being shaped as a parent, you're healing your childhood lack of education. What do you want your children to learn from your journey and the opportunities that they now have?
To have a crack. Please don't outsource responsibility for your life. Ultimately, if you want to do something, just work out how to do it. You don't need my permission. You don't need anyone else's permission. Ultimately, you will realize in life that you need to give yourself permission to go and live that life that you want. I think I was certainly waiting for someone to knock me on the door and just say, go and pursue your dreams. You'll be okay. I had to do the work financially to get to a point where I had the skills, not a belief, but like the skills to say, yeah, you'll be okay. And then I had to give myself permission to actually set sail, give up the addiction to the pay slip, and ultimately have the conviction to find my own level of self-worth and bring value to the world that was aligned to who I wanted to be, and ultimately the kind of problems that I wanted to solve for people in the world. So I want them to know that, like, there is no ceiling. That's
right.
There isn't.
The sky is isn't it only just a chemical reaction that makes it look at the color it looks?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Right? So
yeah,
there's air above that color.
Yeah. I ultimately want them to, this is a big one. I want them to learn what contentment is, because I think most of the world has no idea what it would be or it be like for them to experience contentment in their life. And I want to be very clear to all the type A strivers that are listening to this, that isn't an absence of striving. It's very far from that. But true contentment changes you. And when you understand what it is that you're truly striving for, and you design your life so that contentment grows in your life, your agency for the life that you are living grows. Like, your belief that you can ultimately create a life that you love grows, shifts, changes. And that's the best. Like I think that is the work, because it will be attached to mastery, and ultimately mastery is about the creation of value and service, and it will be attached to you, like who you want to be, what value you want to give to the world, how you want to be remembered. So yeah, like I would encourage them to not be obsessed with objective success. I would really want them to learn what it is to be successful in striving for contentment, and to understand and learn how to define that for themselves. Because I think the minute you do that, everything in your life changes. And if we could teach people how to envisage contentment, how to create more contentment in their life, and how to live in states of contentment more and more and more and more and more, this world will be fundamentally different. And that's what I want to teach them, what it is to strive for contentment.
Beautiful.
Not just more, because
Yeah.
the race to more leads to a pretty empty barrow in my experience.
Yeah. And
More's
more
easy.
doesn't mean lack of imagination. More, you can still have imagination, you can still have creativity and all of those things, but it doesn't mean more.
Yeah. Well, it may mean more on the back end. So, if you're leaning into contentment and you're pursuing contentment and you're becoming who you need to become to realize that contentment, you will experience more. Like, it is the ultimate abundance, but it's not more first. So when this, then that, it's flipped. And that's the real, I think, gateway for people to live a better life.
Yes.
So I hope to lead by example for those little suckers on chasing contentment.
So who are your greatest mentors and motivators?
It's a very big question.
Yeah.
Terry Condon's been a huge catalyst for me to understand how to use money better, to actually define contentment, and just help me kind of realize that I was sleepwalking. He's the founder of a podcast called Money Minded. Used to be called the Passive Income Project. He's phenomenal. I actually came across him at Sportsbet. That's where I first met him. He does the work on himself and to understand his kind of position in the world, and he's a great influence. Sherilyn, the founder of the Marketing Academy, Sherilyn Shackle, she introduced me to the Japanese concept of ikigai, which, for those who don't know, I'm probably going to mess this up, but it's the intersection of what you love to do, what the world needs, what you're good at, and what you can make great money doing. And when that was introduced to me at that point in my life, I was still at Sportsbet, but I'd very much gotten to the point where, having great wagering executive written on my tombstone wasn't going to cut it. And I knew that I had to pursue more. And this framework just I was like, this, if I can solve this, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. It wasn't the answer, but it was this just moment of clarity and fusion of what was kind of missing for me, the missing pieces. So I think she does a really good job herself of living into her ikigai. But that's helped me to also look at people that I do admire with a healthy level of, challenge is the wrong word, but it's the best I've got right now, where like I admire The Rock. There's heaps of people that I admire, but I'm no longer like enamored by them or feel like I can't kind of question aspects about them to learn from what they are, maybe what they're not, or the aspects of their life where they're maybe unfulfilled. It's more this like healthy sense of, I admire that part of you, and I am healthily avoiding that part or wanting to learn from that part and use aspects of that to fill in gaps that I have that are similar. So yeah, The Rock's one, purely because like as a kid, man, he was the ultimate wrestler and he was just the beast. And I admire his storytelling. Like I think if there's one thing that I think I have been gifted from my Aboriginal heritage, it is the power of story. I do think it's what moves and has the ability to shape culture. And he's a really good storyteller. Like his whole $7 productions, and I admire his work ethic. And obviously he's using a hell of a lot of gear, and that's a whole nother topic. But he's a beast, right? And there's a lot about him that I love. Who else do I admire? Von, the founder of Patagonia, I just think his work is just so profound. I'd love to put something into the world that stands for something like that, that allows people to kind of build community and connection. He's definitely someone that I admire. Bruce Pascoe, you know, he's someone that was within reach. Like I went down, I met him and worked on his farm. And I think the work that he's doing to make Indigenous food a part of Australia's culture is just like spine tingling stuff. There's a lot. Like Luke Waldron, hopefully you listen to this, mate. He taught me the most valuable leadership lesson that I've like ever learned. And it's ultimately the power of helping light a fire within someone. To that point in my life, I'd really only ever seen and only ever practiced a leadership style that was, well, I'll light a fire underneath you. And those fires go out.
Yes.
They're not sustainable. He taught me helped me feel what it is to have a fire lit within. And that's the best type of fire that you can gift to someone. So yeah, he's been profound and he's a beautiful human being. And that's a gift that he's the best in the world at giving people and demonstrating.
Yes, he's beautiful. I can see his smile now.
Yeah, same.
So if someone was listening to the podcast now, feeling like their life has just collapsed, what is the first truth or practice that you'd guide them to hold on to right now?
Know that you're enough. Know that it's okay if you're scared. It's okay if it's overwhelming. It's okay if it doesn't feel like it's going to be okay, but know that it will be. And I think there's a million practices that help, but I think it's different for every individual as to what is going to work best for them. For me, it's training. Training is just, I don't know how to describe it. I don't really have the verbiage, but chemically, it's an incredible practice. But like metaphysically, you can't not see agency from changing yourself with your own hands. And if you're really feeling stuck or like, get inward, like focus on your health, protect what it is that you can protect. Know that your emotions are your emotions, but you don't have to be a prisoner to them. You can work with them, work through them, like be with them, because they're not going to last. This is a moment. You know, like gratitude journals help, meditation helps, walks help, swims in the ocean help. They all play a role, but I think I would just encourage people to experiment and find what it is for them, because like, I get sick of people saying it's this or it's that. It's like, great, it's worked for you and that's awesome. But for some people, it might be just reading a book in their room by themselves. And they walk out of that.
So knowing that it's each person, it's something. It's something different. It's what you're drawn to.
Yep.
It's something
you probably
new.
already know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you probably already know it. Yep.
Yeah. Because, well, when life collapses, it is taking a different form, right? So it is creating space for you to rebuild, right? When it freezes, you're stuck. But when it collapses, you have endless opportunities.
Which can be scary as well.
Absolutely. Too much.
But that's it, right? It is that process of embracing, okay, let's create. Like, what's the next thing that we can do? One day at a time. Like, I know they're very cliched responses. I would also, like, I really think you want to find your people in those times. Like, yes, you may need to go inward to protect yourself however you need to in that time. But know that connection, like your relationships, and it may be new relationships that you need to make in this time, but it will be your strength in relationships that gets you to where you want to get to. Like, interconnectedness is critical. So know that, yeah, you may need to like wall or do things that are very insular in that time to give you the energy to get out there and face it. But I'm not introverted, but even the most introverted human beings need to connect in their own way that's right for them with other people. And I'm yet to find tough periods in my life where incredible relationships haven't been the backbone of getting me to the other side. And they're also the same people that are cheering you on through your highs. Yeah. If they're rock solid and if they're really the type of people that you want to be around, they're there in both moments. So I'd say lean into them, like make some calls.
Yeah. So Mitch's story reminds us that sometimes identity isn't just who we think we are, but who we discover we've always been. Redundancy and upheaval don't just end chapters, they can also spark new ones filled with choice, agency, and a clarity we might never have found otherwise. Mitch shows us that when we step away from shoulds and into our own truth, we not only reshape our lives, we gift our children and communities a new legacy. If today's conversation touched something in you, share it forward. And remember, one moment can make us suddenly different, but it's what we do next that defines us. Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you, Leigh-Anne. You are a legend. I hope this was helpful for people.
Thank you. I'm sure it has been. This has been Suddenly Different. I'm Leigh-Anne Charland, and I'm so grateful you shared your time with me. If you felt a spark, a tear, or a moment of recognition, I hope you'll pass that gift along by sharing this show. Take a deep breath, trust your path, and I'll meet you back here soon.